We're really ready this time.
We're ready?
Really, yep.
Okay, I wanted to welcome the two new members. We've done that. Do I have a correction to the minutes? Are there any corrections or changes in the minutes? Do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Who?
Robert.
Robert.
Okay, a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to keep a timer tonight because we have so many different petitions. We're going to ask you to limit your time to 5 minutes, and we've got a timer down here at the end. Please do not be repetitious. And we're going to change the order of the agenda, and we're going to move the Pennington Road issue to the first. So, Mr. Holloway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have some handouts, and as always, Jewel.
Got one behind me.
Yeah, that'd be good. Let me have one. Mr. Larison is going to be kind enough to hand out another packet for you. I'm going to give the chairman, when we get to that point, a complete copy of this handout. You have an abbreviated handout. We didn't think it was necessary to give the commission 12 additional sheets or something like that. So, okay, I'm sorry. The second handout is a abbreviated version of a handout that I will be giving the chairman a complete copy of here and when we get to that point. This project was before this commission approximately September of last year, and it went through a couple meetings, went to the town council at that time, and in that form was rejected. So we talked to our client, and they've come back with what we believe is definitely a better plan, particularly for the surrounding area and the neighbors. And just for the record, so we've got some new members here. I'm Ross Holloway, Holloway Engineering, from here in Mooresville, right up the street. So tonight we've really got two requests before the Plan Commission. The second request is predicated on the first one being approved. Originally, this was presented back in September as a single agricultural lot of approximately 22 acres, 23 acres, something like that. And at that time, it had, I think, we had a preliminary draft layout of something like 63 potential manufactured home lots. So, based upon income or input from the surrounding neighbors and everything, we've come back and reworked the project to what we believe is much better for everyone. And that is to take the approximately 23 acres and divide it into two lots. Lot 2, 15.17 acres, and Lot 1, 6.875 acres. The purpose of this is that we're going to be requesting different zoning on each of the lots. When we get to that stage of the meeting, Lot 2 will be requesting R3 with several commitments and restrictions, and Lot 1, we're requesting rezoning from ag to open space. So tonight, for the first order of business, is simply requesting that you approve a minor plat dividing the original approximately 22 acres into a 2-lot minor plat, of which I've shown you the key portions are the first page. And the key portions, basically the rest of it is the commitment, the legal description, those things which you would eventually see should it be approved tonight, and we can provide copies of. Basically the boilerplate. So with that, Lot 2 will be accessed when we get to the commitment for the zoning. We will not have any access to Pennington Road. It would be prohibited. Lot 1, being open space, will have to have access because it will require some maintenance access and things like that. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. This is a straight up 2-lot minor plat. One thing I might add, per the request of the Tech Review Committee, we have added a buffer and tree preservation easement along the entire east side.
Thank you. Members of the Planning Commission, any comments or questions or concerns?
Just to confirm, this plat change will not require any BZA action
No.
it meets all of our requirements
That is
otherwise?
correct.
All right, thank you.
And so this proposal is just to divide the 20-plus acres into 2 lots.
That is correct. Lot 2 would be approximately 15 acres. Lot 1 would be 6.875 acres. Straight up 2-lot minor plat.
And so the Lot 1 is just going to be open space.
When we get to that point, yes.
Okay, I'm getting it. Any other questions or concerns from the Planning Commission?
Lot 1, the only structure I see is there's a wastewater plant, correct?
That is not on Lot 1. That's actually on the adjoining property to the south.
Okay.
There are no improvements currently on either Lot 1 or 2.
Other questions or concerns from the Planning Commission?
I'm just wondering why it's manufactured housing that's going in.
That will be the next item of discussion for,
Why though?
well, we'll have to discuss that after we have a lot to rezone.
Because if I remember Pennington Road correctly, that's older, nicer
You know,
homes.
I don't want to,
No, this is not, this is for the next one, so
there's 2 separate agenda items.
you can ask the questions on the next, he's gonna be up for another one, just in a minute.
Okay,
Yeah, because in order to answer your questions, we have to go through this step first.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions, concerns from the Planning Commission relative to the 2-lot split?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Is there going to be any trees, anything planted?
They are entirely wooded now.
Okay, so it's a matter of keeping it that way.
That's a question for the next item though, but it's a good question, but right now this is basically under a Unified Development Ordinance or zoning ordinance for 2-lot minor plat.
Okay, before I ask the audience to state their questions or concerns, what we're looking at here is a 2-lot minor plat. And that's what the issue will be. And as I indicated, we're going to put a 5-minute time on. And if there's redundancy, the chairman will ask to go on to the next person.
Thank you.
Whoever wishes to speak, come up, state your name and address. after the mic has been.
Hi, my name's Ken Ebbing, 4850 East Clearview Drive, and I spoke before. So the first thing I got to hand out is an objection for any rezoning out of ag for the parcels that are under discussion by 45 of my neighbors.
Right now we're just looking at splitting these two lots.
Maybe if you want, I can wait until you guys decide on whether you want to split, and I'll just go to the second round.
But I don't think that you're concerned here. We're just splitting these two lots now.
No,
Pardon?
no.
You don't have concerns about the splitting of the two
That's what I'm
lots? or
saying. No, if you want to wait till the next,
Yes.
Okay,
next item.
that's fine.
Yeah, please, thank you.
My name is Mary Harold. I live at 5010 East Orchard Road in Mooresville on Poplar Grove Lake. I guess my major concern here is why? Why is this plat being split into two separate lots? Is it because Mr. Holloway wishes to have a smaller plat that does not come under specific jurisdiction? Why? Why at this juncture? If Mr. Holloway can appropriately answer that question, I would love to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else before Mr. Holloway answers questions? Mr. Holloway?
The reason for dividing into lots will become apparent when we address the next item. Right now, under your unified zoning ordinance, it's permitted and permitted in ag districts, no zoning changes, so that is what we choose to do.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from the board?
Well, I do have a question.
Speak
I'm
in-
just a-
Speak into the mic, please.
Okay, I'm just a question asker. See, I got
That's
this,
gonna
right?
be on the next.
Is that, okay, but I'm just wondering why it's being split. Because if you're asking for a zoning change, there's a reason for it. So that's, but
Any other
if
que-
that's for later, then.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minor plat change for lots 1 and 2 along Pennington Road as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'm a no.
Did you get that? Okay, we're going to take a vote. All those in favor? Motion.
Call closed.
And all those against? Did I count you back there?
You said yes.
Did you get the count? Okay, thank you.
I think we're good.
Motion passes. Now we're on to the second phase.
Now that the planning commission has approved the creation of lot 2 and a lot 1, we can move on to what is the meat of this meeting, I'm sure, and why all the folks behind me are here. If you turn to the second page of the handout, which is a reflection of the drawing to my left, the bottom part of it, you'll see lot 2, 15.28 acres, a lot you just approved creating. And lot 1, 6.26 acres, the same scenario. You'll see that we're requesting lot 2 to be rezoned from ag to R3, specifically, which we'll get to in a minute, for manufactured housing. Lot 1 would be rezoned from ag to open space. And to tackle the easiest question first is why open space? And that's because under the UDO, open space has some protections that ag does not. Open space is essentially just that. Can't be developed, maybe a shelter house or something open like that, picnic tables or those things. It can be used for drainage, it can be used for recreational activities that don't require building primary structures, in essence. So the intent was to change that from ag to open space to protect the adjoining property owners from any kind of adverse agricultural use. And that could be anything. That could be cattle, that could be horses, that could be poultry, it could be anything that's allowed under the ordinance, which is practically anything except confined feeding. So with this zoning change, then that space down there will always be protected from any type of what I would say would be incompatible use from the residential areas to the south and even to the north. So I think that one is probably pretty well a slam dunk. The lot 2, 15.28 acres, is a portion of what we presented last September to be rezoned to R3 with a serious list of commitments, which we went through the last time and which we agreed to, and which this time we got on the last page, 8.5 by 11. These are the commitments that would run with lot 2. The lot to be rezoned to R3, since lot 1 will be open space and the UDO restricts the uses that could be placed on that property. Commitment number 1 is R2 is restricted to manufactured home park as defined by your unified zoning ordinance, and no other R3 use would be allowed, such as an apartment complex or something like that. So it would have to be manufactured home park under your unified ordinance. And that section, by the way, has some specific requirements that the Plan Commission would have to approve and we would have to meet. Commitment number 2 is shown on the plan, and that is a 40-foot wide buffer yard per your requirements again of the Unified Zoning Ordinance. And also, I think we committed last time to a 6-foot high privacy fence, and that would be constructed along the east line of lot 2 prior to the commencement of any construction of improvements. And further, the existing mature trees and other desirable vegetation within the 40-foot wide buffer yard shall, to the maximum extent practical, remain undisturbed to act as natural screening. Prior commitment number 3, and the reason it's prior is because it no longer applies to this application, and that had to do with a minimum distance that any manufactured home lot could be to any residential lot. That distance was 140 feet, but now because we've got lot 1, which will be open space and exceeds that 140 feet, there was no reason for that to be there. Number 4, manufactured homes placed on lot 2 must be owner occupied, no rentals, in other words, no subletting, which is what commitment number 5 addresses. Number 8, there will be no direct access to Pennington Road from lot 2. And commitment number 7, the prior commitment was for a fence along the east line and south line, but since now the south is open space which buffers lot 2 and the manufactured housing from the uses to the south, lot 2 or commitment 7 was rolled into commitment number 2. So the list of commitments, to recap, is manufactured home park only, no apartments or anything like that. Maintain a 40-foot wide buffer along the east line of Lot 2 with a 6-foot high privacy fence and preserve existing mature trees and vegetation. Number 4 is Lot 2, the homes must be owner occupied. Lot 5, or Commitment 5, there will be no subleasing. And 6, no access to Pennington Road in Lot 2. So, to address some of the issues I know the folks here behind me will want to address, but I want to show the Planning Commission a few things first, and that is, if you look here, you will see that we've got the distances from the south line of what would be the manufactured home portions to, in one case, the nearest residence would be Crosley on Birdsong Trail, 356 feet through the woods. The nearest property line for lots that are not developed is 225 feet, and it increases from there. If you look to the east, you see across Poplar Grove Lake, we have distances. The closest is the Whitmans at 268 feet, but that is from the open space. If you went on up to where the manufactured housing park was, it exceeds 500 feet. The house, the McKinney Trust, is over 1,000 feet. Hunter is over 500 feet. Brown is over 500 feet, approaching 600 feet from the property line of this Lot 2. And a lot of that is through a wooded area, the open space of Lot 1, so it was critical that Lot 1 be preserved, because if it was agriculture, there it could come in and be completely cut down, could have any kind of detrimental uses on it as far as the adjoining folks would be concerned. So that brings us to the last part, and I'll give the chairman this for the record, portions of which you have been handed out. Last time there was some folks talking about decreasing property values and talked about that it was undesirable and why were we doing this and such. This is a May 2019 report from the Kelly School of Business concerning manufactured housing in Indiana and housing shortage. I've highlighted a few portions through it. The first page after the top is a comment, a quote from Columbus Mayor Jim Lindenhoop. He's a fine fellow, by the way, got big projects over there right now. And he says that it's desirable to have a mix of housing, basically, and housing that's affordable to keep workers in your community. The next page, as the workforce changes, a lack of affordable housing to accommodate the workforce will force the state to forfeit economic gains that could have been accrued from these new jobs. And then the next page, one section, but it's good to read, is unavailable housing slows economic growth, and housing has to be a mix all the way from for maybe plant managers or plant owners down to those folks that work the line or work the docks. The next sheet is how manufactured housing affects property values. And I'm going to read this for the record. And that's the highlighted portion in the middle of the page. There's a fear that manufactured homes may adversely affect the value of surrounding properties. The valuation of site-built and manufactured homes in neighborhoods with both types of homes have been studied. Data on 159 homes was gathered from neighborhoods with both site-built and manufactured homes. Manufactured homes constitute 30% of the 159 homes analyzed. Results show that the property value of manufactured homes was increasing at a higher rate than property values of site-built homes. In other words, stick-built is another word for that. In addition, the study demonstrated that the presence, this is key, of manufactured homes in neighborhoods with both housing types did not detract from the value of surrounding site-built homes. These findings indicate that 1, property assessors undervalue the price of manufactured housing, and 2, the concern that manufactured homes bring down the value of surrounding homes is unfounded. And this gets back to a point I made last time, but is important to reiterate here tonight, is that the folks that are down here in Country View, Birdsong Trail and the rest of them, the folks that are across Poplar Grove Lake, all drive past the existing manufactured home park to get to their homes. They drive down Pennington Road, they drive past the manufactured homes. Those manufactured homes, for the most part, not all, were there, and that development was there prior to any of the development in Country View, because we did it. As well as a lot of the houses over 500-600 feet east across the lake. So I think we've demonstrated here tonight that 1, we think there's a need for manufactured housing and for economic development purposes, because you need a mixed up housing. And I know Mooresville has a dearth of housing of other types, which we're trying to address also. And 2, based upon the Kelly School of Business report, manufactured housing has no impact on the appraised value of existing stick-built, site-built homes. But more importantly, I want to emphasize that the nearest home currently built to what would be the manufactured housing area, Lot 2, is 356 feet through the woods, almost across the wastewater treatment plant that's on the adjoining property. So it's hard to understand how they can assess an impact, an adverse impact, given those conditions. So with that, I would be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners, questions or comments?
I have 2. You said that there's going to be no access to Pennington Road.
That's
Where's the
correct.
access gonna be?
The access will be through the existing manufactured home park to the north.
And the other question I have, is that area high grade for fire protection?
I do not believe so. It's still water, but probably not for fire protection, but none of the homes are on a fire protection system out there. In fact, the closest actual fire rated system probably is either Mooresville or all the way out to Citizens Energy lines that are near Man Road in that area. One thing that addressed that question too is these are not, by the way, what I'm going to use the stereotypical word trailer parks. These lots have to be for the UDO, I believe about 60 to 70 feet wide. So the spacing between these manufacturers' homes to each other is as greater than stick builds.
Because fire in one of those trailers, the exposure.
Right, and that's why the greater spacing and the bigger lots. And one other thing I think I mentioned early on, but I'll mention now. This proposal would contain between a third, maybe more than a third, fewer lots than the proposal presented last September. So I think that goes to allay some of the fears about traffic and some things like that. Also with me tonight are folks from Asbury Ridge. Would raise your hand. Now I don't want to speak, and I can't blame them, but they're here in force. So, any other questions?
As a follow-up to his question about the fire protection, I'm assuming that any development that would occur on Lot 2 would have adequate access for a fire truck to be
Yes.
able to go in there. When you look at how that would be laid out so that it would be provided.
In fact, your Unified Zoning Ordinance standards for manufactured housing addresses that, talks about street width, talks about turning radiuses, all of those things. So fire truck access is, or emergency access for that matter, of any kind is preserved. No different than Country View or any of the other subdivisions around. Basically, you have to meet the same
Right.
requirements as far as turning radiuses, street standards, and things like that. In fact, in some respects, it's more, because manufactured housing, obviously, sometimes when they're brought in, they take a larger turning radius.
Okay, thank you.
So approximately how many trailers would be?
Not trailers, manufactured homes. Manufactured homes, we think about 40. But,
You'll have to come back with the.
and that's a good point. The UDO, you don't know why I say UDO, Unified Zoning Ordinance requires us to bring a plan back for any manufactured housing to the Plan Commission for your approval. So we will be back here to discuss number of lots, width of lots, area lots, street access, fire access, all of those things. So tonight is basically the first step in a process that's going to be relatively lengthy.
Other comments or questions from the commissioners? Question, comment?
I'd like to just hear from these people.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to ask the audience to speak
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
come up.
You indicated that you were going to give the chairman the floor.
I think I.
It is, it's in there.
He's got it in the folder, I gave it to him.
You want to
see the
You want to see
folder?
it?
It's got some interesting tables in the back. It talks about the median income to purchase a $162,000 home is about $23 an hour. It works out to $46,000 a year. In most instances, in Mooresville anyway, you will find out that that's a two-income family a lot of times. So the economics are such that you'll find out that a lot of times, if it's a one-income family, manufactured housing certainly fills a niche in the community. Thank you.
For the benefit of those who were not here when we started the meeting, we're going to ask you to limit your comments to 5 minutes. And please do not be repetitious. If you're repetitious, I may call you out, and let's go to the next comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll get your name again.
Before you go too far.
Oh, yeah. We need one more for him back here.
Got it, thank you. Forgot about that.
You got everything now?
My name's Ken Oden, and I actually live in Clearview Estates, 4850. And I spoke to both different boards before, which voted unanimously against this project. Now it's a modified project, but putting lipstick on a pig is still a pig. So I appreciate the endeavor and effort that they've gone to try to make it more palatable for all the different surrounding neighbors. But you're gonna hear from a bunch of us for different, various good reasons why not to proceed. So the ones I'm gonna touch on is specifically related to Clearview Estates. So, oops, here's Pennington. This is Ashbury Ridge today. This is the parcel that they own that's under ag. There's the section that's owned by the sewage plant. And this is Country View Estates where I live, and phase 3 that's owned by a separate person that's ready, that's already been platted out for development under R1. So our houses are going for about $278,000 per. And if you look at the back detail sheet, you'll see the tax burden for Ashbury Ridge equals about 5 of our houses. So Dan talked about earlier that businesses pay the bills for the tax base. The answer is not from Morgan County. So unfortunately, in this particular case, he's citing people saying that you need low-income housing. I don't disagree with that. The question is how much. So Mooresville has an abundance of of trailer parks. I won't call them manufactured housing, yeah, they're made in a big box warehouse. This so are a lot of stick-built houses, they're preformed and put up. The question is what kind of housing you need, do you have the appropriate amount, and it is in the right spot. So my concerns are A, it's already ag. I already just gave you a list of 45 of my neighbors that disagreed for this particular lot, or 2 lots now, to be split and changed from a zoning perspective. The tax burden on people to pay more is these will still attract kids and everything else to the tax burden. You gotta make up that tax money somehow. Who's gonna do it? There's a potential devaluation of my property that you talked about. Don't worry about it. Do you wanna give me a contract guaranteeing the fair market value of my property at the time? So it's like, I don't wanna lose. It's not in my backyard. Everybody's well aware that the trailer park's there. The question is, should it be expanded? And the answer is, should be no, for a lot of different reasons you're gonna hear. So in conclusion, I'm sticking to my 5 minutes, it's not a very good reason because our phase 3 has already been plotted. No developer's gonna come in and put in $800,000 to $1 million worth of infrastructure to then put in a total value of around a $300,000 house to develop it out when you have line of sight during the winter, 500 feet away, looking at mobile homes. It just won't happen, guys. So this isn't Indianapolis, where we have a dense market where you need to stack stuff up. And do you want to set a continued precedent of allowing mobile homes to continue to be spread around Mooresville? The answer is there any homeless people? Is there anybody already occupying their existing facilities where there's no capacity? There is, they have empty lots today. So why expand something when you haven't even tapped out what you already have on the books that's zoned? Makes no sense. And you hear about flooding and all the other traffic issues, fire truck turnarounds, the whole 9 yards. So I've listed out the items here that I'm concerned about. So same thing, you know, the buses have to do a cul-de-sac turn. It's a fingered system. They have to back up if they go down. The fire trucks, the garbage trucks, that's safety issues. Unless phase 3 is finished and completed, you have an issue. And if you disincent somebody from completing phase 3, then you've put the cart before the horse. So you've already had it in line to do it correctly. Now you're going to usurp all that. So had I known and thought about it, I would have rejected the splitting of the properties. And the reason is because they didn't think through real fast. It's like, well, no, you can buy 100 pieces. But strategically, he's trying to whitewash this, thinking, well, if I cut this away and I leave more timber, it's a good thing. Everybody should be happy. The answer is no. No. If you put yourself in my shoes, would you be happy? So as a tax-paying Mooresvillian, the answer is no. It's not because it's just the wrong business decision and the wrong place at the wrong time. That's my 5 minutes, guys. Any questions?
Just a couple of questions. Does it bother you that Lot 1 would be rezoned from ag to open space?
Yes. Yeah, I'm gonna say yes to everything. I should have rejected it at the first round when it was split in half, but that's water under the bridge. You guys made your ruling. But I'm gonna object to any change of zoning for either of these 2 parcels, if he files.
Okay.
So I'm sticking with my original speeches to both different boards, same reason, and it's like, tell me what's changed. Now, I appreciate the effort they put forward. I do. But I'm not buying it. That's where I'm at.
The only other question that I had is that your numbers here are predicated upon, I think, the last presentation.
I pulled up, yeah, on that presentation, I'll call a public GIS system.
Okay. So
they're rough, they're not exact, so,
Sure.
you know, don't put me in jail because they're off
That's fine.
$1,000
That's
or
fine.
now.
I
And we've increased the number of houses in phase 2, it's almost fully built out now, so we're probably up to around a little 50, 51 houses, whereas before it was like 47 houses. So when you're on a roll, my concern is if you disincent phase 3 construction by doing this, that is a beyond bad mistake from planning, from doing the right thing for your neighbors. And then you're gonna hear other stuff about water and fire and police protection, all that stuff.
I just wanted to make sure you understood that the open space could not have any development in it, so the smaller.
Correct, but they could also clear the timber. I mean, the same thing to do on ag. If he wants to harvest the timber, he can do it. The problem is he's trying to tell you one thing that's gonna happen and stand down and it's all gonna be cool. No, it's not. There's no guarantees. They can do whatever they want within the rules of how it's zoned. So the first Herculean effort by any developer is zoning. That's a controlled development. Period. I know it, he knows it, he doesn't want anybody else to know. So it's like, if you change the zoning, whether it's one parcel or two, we lose. And it's on you guys' shoulders. Is this a net gain for the community or a detriment? In my eyes, with all the things that's been presented before, and I know this to the board members, this thing's an upside down turkey. It's like, why?
I just want you to understand that it is a smaller piece of ground that we are talking about. So the number of
It's taking
homes,
about a third.
the number of homes that could be built on that is a smaller number of homes no matter what is done.
That's correct.
And the open space, forestry, tree farming, anything like that is prohibited. So it is not allowed. So just so that you're
But
aware.
it could be developed for recreation.
There are very tight restrictions on that. I just wanted you to be aware that
Yes,
that those
it's
are,
a
that
better-
are not there
it's a
today
better
as an ag piece.
proposal than what it was.
But you
But-
understand that ag would have the ability to do things you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I mean,
whereas
I
open
live in
space-
Country View
Okay.
Estates. I might as well rename it Country Smells Estates. Okay, so put in pigs, put in cows. I'm fine with that.
Okay, fair
What
enough.
I'm not fine with is looking at trailers. You can call it a manufactured home,
Okay.
pull the wheels off. Good for you. It's still a trailer.
I just want to make sure you understood. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for me?
I think you did hear
Thank
into
you.
your 5 minute, oh, you got a question?
No.
It's very clear.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have a question, comment?
Oh, after her.
After her, you can come up.
I'm Karen Overpeck. I live at 11310 North Pennington Road. I've lived there for 68 years, paid taxes for 63 years on that property. I lived there when it was the Coonhaggers Club. Now it's a mobile home park. That has made a difference in my property. I now have flooding issues that I didn't have before. And I have other issues from living at this place. They talk about Country View. We were on the committee to ask for better housing there years ago because it was going to be lower income houses, and for the community felt like we needed something better, which the board did, and we have better housing there now. I think there's a better use for this property than expanding the mobile home park. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to come up and speak? Please state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Todd Nellen. I live at 10770 Holland Drive. I own 5 acres, and the west end of my property joins the trailer park property. And from what I've seen, what he's done to other property that he's developed, there's nothing going to be but a mess. There's trailer parks in there now that have vacant lots. The trailers are in there run down. They got a 2-rail plastic vinyl fence going down the road that does nothing but go up and down. And you think that's gonna help our property by him putting this in? Look what he did to the people at the Rolling Vista on the lake. He developed it. It went through, it failed. DNR got involved. Cost everybody thousands of dollars. How many people's lives did he ruin? That's the same thing he's gonna do to us. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else wish to speak? Please come up, state your name.
Could I get your name again? I'm sorry, just for my notes.
Right there.
Get your name.
Could I get your name again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Nowlin, Nowlin.
Thank you.
You get it?
Christie,
Yep.
okay.
Hi, my name is Pam Hunter, and I live at 5000 East Dutch Drive. I'm actually a neighbor to Todd, the gentleman that just spoke previous to me. I know Mr. Holloway is an engineer and was hired by the mobile home park, and he's just doing his job, presenting what he needs to present. We live at the very tip, sticking out in the water, but we did not receive any notification and was told that only 2 properties adjacent to the property that he's speaking of had to be notified. But we bought our property, we are looking at trees, nature, and we bought our property 7 years ago and built a brand new home. And we didn't buy it with the thought of anything being developed over there. And I think it would be very detrimental to our neighborhood, to the gentleman here that spoke previous. And I just want to give my opposition to this idea.
Thank you. Did you get her name, Christie?
Yes,
Pam-
thank
Pam
you.
Hunter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Come on ahead.
Hello, my name is Doug Sims. I live at 10620 North Holland Drive South. It is across the lake. I'd like to take issue with Mr. Holloway's characterization that this would be affordable housing. Based on a little bit of research I did this afternoon, the lot rent appears to be $370 to $375 a month. Last year when this project was proposed, the mobile homes, the manufactured houses that were going to be installed and sold would be between $100,000 and $125,000. Based on my math of $100,000 with 20% down, $80,000 mortgage on a 15-year note at 4%, that's about $600 a month, which in and of itself sounds pretty good. Add on another $400 a month lot rent, now it's $1,000 a month. For $1,000 a month, a traditional stick-built house is $140,000 to $150,000 worth of house. And at the end of 15 years, that's both 15-year mortgage, at the end of 15 years, the owner owns the house instead of having a perpetual lot rent and financing something that continually goes down in value. So, affordable housing, my definition of affordable housing is a little different. So, here you go.
Can I ask you a question?
You may.
You're a part of the subdivision that is in there or not? That's.
I am, pardon. I'm down here.
Okay, but you're a part of that subdivision there. Do you have a?
Poplar Grove.
Okay. Do you have a
Yeah.
homeowners association?
We do.
Do you pay dues to that homeowners
I do.
association? Okay. How much is that per month?
$30 a month.
Okay.
That's to pay for our road pavement.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
My name is Mary Harold, you guys know me. I am, I'm not even on this map. I'm right here. I'm in the original home built by Bob Holland when he developed that lake. And left his contracting business behind as an apartment house. I simply wanted to add to my neighbors.
You're supposed to address the board, dear.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're supposed to address the people up here.
My apologies. I'd like to add to my neighbor's comments, a traditional manufactured home on a rented lot would not qualify for a standard mortgage it would usually qualify for a chattel mortgage, which is a 6 to 8% rate, making $125,000 manufactured home probably closer to $1,200 to $1,300 a month when you add the mortgage to the rent. Mr. Holloway has, I'm looking forward to reading the studies from the Kelley School of Business, but a great deal has changed, as we all know, in the last year. The National Bureau of Economic Research and one of President Trump's former economic advisors have officially declared a national recession, as well as we're on the way to a global recession. If there is sufficient affordable housing in a region, then there is no reason to expect that anyone would wish to invest in a manufactured home. What we heard, the figures that I have seen is that since from January 2019 to January 2020, the unemployment rate, or the unemployed in Morgan County, increased by 17.3% to over 6,000 individuals, and we are well on our way to 7,500 individuals claiming unemployment in Morgan County by the end of June. My question to this commission is, if there is sufficient affordable housing, who can afford more? Certainly not the residents of Morgan County. And I really am looking forward to seeing the Kelley School of Business study, because quite frankly, even though I myself was raised in a double wide, I am quite sure, thank you very much. I am quite sure that my neighbors objected to my father erecting a double wide on his property as we were building our home, because it brought down their property values as well. Thank you very much. I think economic dangers are not being taken into consideration in this whole debate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shane.
Hello, my name is Len Henricks. I live with that lady that just talked.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Just a couple points. I know Mr. Holloway has indicated that, you know, he got his lot split that he was looking forward to having. It would have been nice to sit and explain exactly why you were looking for that ahead of time. It would have made things a little more clear and give us a little more upfront kind of feeling. But anyway, that's the way it happened. The way you currently are explaining how this open space is going to work is really no different than what has been proposed in the past. The only difference is that it will be zoned open space as opposed to ag. I don't think anybody was really too worried or in fear that somebody was going to erect a hog operation behind us or come in and completely clear cut. They did some minor clear cutting 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Excuse me, you're supposed to be addressing the board.
Oh, sorry. Talking to the man that I'm actually talking to, actually. The open space that you're talking about, is that going to be controlled by the county? Is it going to be a park? Is it going to be controlled by the folks that continue to operate the manufactured home property? Issues that I've noticed with the current Asbury Estates or Asbury Ridge, the lake that they have there, I think it's approximately 4 acres in size. The dam already appears to be overwhelmed every single time we get even a moderately heavy rain. Their emergency spillway is operating almost every time we have a pretty heavy rain. There's already some erosion starting on the backside of the dam in a couple spots. and you're proposing putting additional homes in that area now, another 35, 40 homes, a lot more pavement. You also indicated that the clear space or the open space could be used for drainage. I'm assuming that means you could potentially direct all the drainage out of the new development into that area, which is already a small creek that's enveloped in the woods there. Putting that clear space in does not change anything from the perspective of the landowners in this area. The folks in Country View Estates are still going to be looking through the same bit of woods. There may be another additional few feet of space that they're not looking through to the manufactured homes, but it's still going to be the same. That hasn't changed. Just calling the property in between another type of property doesn't change that. I think page 86 of the Morgan County Comprehensive Plan calls for several key objectives. Two of those objectives are preserving natural areas as much as possible. If you're taking the preponderance of these two parcels and turning them into manufactured homes, it's no longer a natural space at that point, regardless of what you do with the other 6 or 7 acres. The other thing is the county is trying to bring young professional families into the county, and I don't think this type of housing is going to do that. I don't think that meets the goals that you guys have established. So, any questions?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Dayton Gobert. I live on 5020 East Orchard. My wife and I moved in there in October of 2019. No longer the Whitmans, so it shows how much he cares who actually lives there and who is affected by this. I did not get a notice of this happening. I found out about 2 weeks ago from my neighbor, and then saw his pretty pitiful sign by the side of the road that was on a white 11 by 8 sheet of paper, laminated. We moved there to get away from the noise and city life, and were attracted by the woods and of course the lake that we paid a premium price to live on. Pardon me. So what I see is a lack of understanding of the ecological benefit of what's there and the effects of removing all of that from not only us as the residents of the area, but the native species that do live in there. We have great horned owls that I hear call every single night that live in those woods. We have red-shouldered hawks nesting in the northeast plot that would be removed, and those are actually quite a rare bird, although not endangered. We do have 3 birds on the special concern list of Indiana that have been spotted there, being bald eagles, osprey, and sharp-shinned hawk. And we also have had Indiana endangered brown bats that live in those woods, and my wife and I and neighbors have seen consistently. We've also seen or spotted green herons, the great horned owls I mentioned, and yeah, I think that's it. There's a lot more in there, of course, but I just wanted to point those things out that probably none of you are thinking of. So, appreciate your time. If you have any questions.
Very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dennis Campbell. I reside at 5088 East Orchard Road. I currently am employed with the Department of Defense. I'm looking to retire from the Department of Defense. I recently purchased a home there. I have Lakeview, and like others have said, we have paid a premium price for that. I have also resided in manufactured homes, if you want to call them that. But if they have wheels on them, they're sort of mobile. They're not actually concreted in. They offer no additional value. And they also, I hate saying this because I've resided in some of them growing up, attract an undesirable element. My concern is with this lake, kids are going to be kids. They're going to go wherever they want to go. I mean, I have one right now that rides a dirt bike all over the place and drives me nuts, but he's a kid. So, in that though, what we paid for this property probably would safely pay for 4 of these, mobile homes. I'm sorry, I can't paint a different picture. We also purchased additional property because we had moved down here, trying to escape what I call the rat race. Mooresville had something to offer. Came here, looking to retire. I gotta be honest with you. Shortly after I bought the house, we moved in, we found out this was happening. I probably would have looked in a different direction had I known that this sneaky kind of backdoor action was gonna happen. Now I hear today that we have a new and improved plan. Well, I'm sorry to say, the new and improved plan to do this is divide and conquer in basis. And it offers nothing really. Oh, we're gonna give a 6-foot fence. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm 6'5", so you get a general idea how big that fence is. And people can climb those fences. We can also have wooded area that's going to be a break. People can wander through wooded areas. Accidents can happen. The people that are living on the lake are responsible for those accidents. I just don't feel this is a good solution, and it really doesn't offer anything additional. And sitting back here, had I held my tongue, I really wouldn't be helping the situation. I may not be helping it now, but at least my voice was heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shane.
My name's Dave Steele. I live at 4681 East Pennington Lane. I lived there about 4 years now. I was in the last hearings where Mr. Holloway did his presentation, and I'm in this one where I've heard it this time. Granted, he's made some improvements, and I heard some of his statistics on the Kelly School of Business. Well, I think sometimes statistics and real life don't go hand in hand a lot of times, because I don't want anybody telling me that a $100,000 manufactured home isn't going to affect the assessed value of my property. One thing, and I don't want to go through anything else, I don't want to rehash anything else, but one thing that I think people need to think of or consider is something that's not ever been brought up in any of the meetings that I've been at, that actually Mooresville has experienced just of late. Tornadoes. Now, you're right, you can't predict, you can't tell what's going to happen, but I've seen the aftermaths of what happens to mobile home parks because the air gets underneath them. Once it's underneath them, they're upside down and all over the place or gone. And like I said, I did mobile home work for about 10 years in my earlier life, and I could handle the stress and strain of carrying concrete block and doing skirting and tie downs and about everything else that was associated with a mobile home. So I'm not ignorant of how they're built and what can happen to them. But I think a safety issue needs to be taken into consideration, because let me tell you, you double the size or whatever of an area, you're increasing your odds of a target. Okay, people can say, okay, well, you're kind of full of it. Well, that's okay. nobody probably ever thought one was gonna come down through downtown Mooresville either. And I've got a stepson that lives over here on South Street, or South High Street, I'm sorry, and it hit the house right next to him. So, just some food for thought, you know, just wanted to bring up a point that was never mentioned before, so, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else before Mr. Holloway addresses some of the concerns?
Good evening. My name is Mark Williams. I live at 4890 East Clearview Drive, which is in Country View Estates. I was born and raised here in Mooresville and purchased my first home in October of 2019. I'm 24 years old. I had the option to move to Plainfield, Brownsburg, Avon, more desirable communities, but I decided to stay in the community I was raised. With that being said, as a young professional and also a local firefighter, I'd like to speak to some of the points that Mr. Holloway made. I, for the past 6 years, have served as a firefighter in this area. With that being said, I have fought fires in Ashbury Ridge. I have driven fire trucks in Ashbury Ridge. I have seen 5, 6, 7 fire apparatus operate in Ashbury Ridge. Adding additional mobile home units to the rear side of that park is not conducive to firefighting operations. Mr. Robinson, I heard you make a point. You asked the question. I'm wondering the same thing. How are we supposed to get adequate water supply, adequate manpower, and adequate apparatus for a quick and timely service on a mobile home fire? They go quick. I don't know if you've ever seen one burn, but there's not much time. Furthermore, as a young professional and new homeowner in Mooresville, it's very non-attractive that I would not have purchased my home had I known that this plan was in place. When I purchased my home, the builder sold it to me that it was upscale housing that was to be zoned behind me. Have you ever been inside of a mobile home? Have you ever been inside of an upscale house? I fought fires in both. I've been in both. That's not upscale housing. It's not conducive to young professionals staying in this community, coming to this community, and supporting the forward progress of the town of Mooresville. So I would just like to convey my displeasure with this and lack of support for this proposed plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think some.
Hello, my name is Gene Ellis, and I'm live at 4941 East Clearview Drive. I'm a realtor. I've been a realtor for about 13 years, and I can tell you one thing, with the park coming in the way he wants it to be down, your property values are not going to go up. They might go down. It's all up attends to what the appraiser sees in his eyes. So we've always been taught, when I've been in realtor school, that you got to watch what's behind you, what's in front of you, where you're at. You live on a busy road, you got a train track. You're not going to get the same amount of out of your housing when you get ready to sell it as you think you were going to get, because nobody's going to pay for that. I've seen houses, and a good example is Silver Hill or Silver Springs in Greenwood. They have a trailer court behind the back end of that housing addition, and houses do not sell. And these are houses that are in the $300,000 to $400,000 bracket, but the houses on that back road do not sell at the price that they want, or they have to take a less amount of money because of the park. And when it gets winter time, you don't have any trees. They got trees, but the leaves are gone. So the value is not going to be there with this new addition coming into what he's wanting to be. Prices are up in our addition, which is Clearview Drive. They just sold a home right next to us. The asking price was $284,900. I don't know what it's sold for because it hasn't closed yet. At least they haven't showed it being closed. So again, values going up. We live right on the end of Clearview Drive, where the acreage starts, where Marty like WIP, I think it's got the acreage there for the new development. I can't imagine him ever wanting to ever selling that property with the park coming in the way they're wanting to do. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to address some questions, Mr. Holloway?
Yes, if everyone's finished.
Oh, you still, no one was coming up, so.
My name is Jen McKinney, and my husband and I live at 10640, 106.
Can you hear Christie?
I didn't get your name, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Jen McKinney. My husband and I live at 10640 North Holland Drive. I just wanted to pass out a few pictures. We've had a couple of people that has contacted me and asked me to talk on their behalf because they didn't feel secure in being able to come tonight. They're a little bit older.
Can you hear?
And so I wanted to do that, but before I started this part of it, I wanted to ask how many people are here in the audience in opposition to lots 1 and 2, or whatever he wants to call it, for Ashbury Ridge? Thank you. I don't think he's got it.
I need 2 here to pass to a gentleman.
Well, I don't think he has given me enough
We'll share.
copies of this issue. I've also got the last notes from the last meeting that was in opposition. I did make copies so that you can refer back to any of the questions that we asked in the last meeting, not to belabor that. I'm going to go over it again.
Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute. That one goes to somebody, one of the new people. Yeah.
I got it. You got some?
Not voting that first.
Well, I look at it as a little bit difficult to be able to make a decision when Holloway Engineering has had over a year to reformulate what he wants to propose to the residents whom it most affects. We've had 2 minutes to look at the board before this all started. So in all fairness to the rest of us, I think that that decision a little bit earlier was kind of sprung on us about rezoning into 2 different lots, making an open space and R3. I don't think that was quite fair to the people whose lives it will mostly affect. I want to address this with the decision that the Indiana code, of which you got the Indiana code that you all know, 3674603, Title 36, and there are 5 examples that's given by the state to allow for a rezoning or to make a rezoning change. And some of those have already been covered, so to respect the time of everybody else, I'm not going to go over that again. But on page 51 of the comprehensive plan for the county, it says upper end housing to attract young professionals, and it was already stated that the way to attract that is to have housing that will provide the attraction to be able to come to our county, which is what we all need. That's what we need for the tax base. The second one is the current conditions and character of current structures and uses on each of the districts. I have a petition here that has been signed by 81 people, in that everybody that backs up to the current Ashbury Bridge Lake, not Poplar Grove Lake, Ashbury Bridge Lake has signed in opposition to be able to make this change. The erosion is so bad over there, some of them even had to build retaining walls to be able to get to their sheds in the back of their rented lot. You can see from the pictures that I've provided that there's been an enormous amount of runoff that goes over the dam, out the side of the lake. Those were taken since this meeting last year, so even though they've been indicated that, it's been indicated that there's going to be sufficient changes made to be able to accommodate, if they weren't, why haven't they been? You're asking for new allowances for more development to be made, and you've still got issues that FEMA addressed back in 2008 with them that have not been addressed. So why are you going to allow for more stormwater runoff? Why are you going to allow for more concrete jungle whenever they can't accommodate what they've got over there? Number 3, most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted. And on page 27 of your comprehensive plan, it says preserve natural vegetation and reduce stormwater runoff to protect the habitats. You can go back to the 2019 notes and read what was discussed at that time. I'm not going to belabor that. But raising the ground 32 feet above the current dam that's at Poplar Grove Lake is going to bring tons more runoff. And what are you going to do with all that? There's currently a natural flow on the north end of the proposed area that comes through on the north side. That is from runoff from houses that face 144 that go behind Pennington. Where is all that going to go? When it goes into that pond and the contaminants from the pond, because of inadequate sewer systems over there, runs out, that's going to contaminate your lake, that's going to contaminate your river, that's going to contaminate everything downstream. The number 4 of the 5 judicial request is conservation of property values throughout jurisdiction. I have been a realtor before. I've talked to the county assessor, and I've talked to 4 real estate realtors locally, semi-locally, and they have all said that you could expect a reduction in the cost or the value that you would receive from your home if this was to go through. Don't need to belabor that one either. None of this is about a character reference. None of this is about a NIMBY, as Mr. Holloway referred to the last time. It's all about being able to have substantial value, to have good development, to have good growth. And does the city of Mooresville have enough of that housing? It's already been discussed. Yes, we think they do. Is it wise to allow a lower tax base for the residents here? Look at the higher end growth around the cities. Look at the Center Grove. Look at the Plainfield. Look at the Avon. Look at the Franklin Township. They're all growing, and it's not through manufactured homes. It's not through trailer parks. It's developmental homes of higher character. I think Monroe County needs to move in that direction. The traffic increase, they've already said it's going to be stated by the state 5 times greater once they work on the highway over here on 37, converting it to 69, deflected to 39, and back up through 37. That's already going to add more congestion to the already blind spot that you see when you pull out Pennington. No matter whether they want to develop 4 or 40, or no matter whether it's this plot that he's looking at or developing acreage out on Watson and Pennington, it's going to add considerable traffic to the intersection right there at 144, which is already a major concern. So Lastly, point out, as he already did after being denied 2 times in 2019 for virtually the same request, I want to say, is this proposal any different for the community than before? And to say, if this was a good idea in proposal for the community, then why didn't all the people get notified by letter, registered or not, they notified last year? Why was this put through without letting everyone else know that was notified last year? Why did he use an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper on a 2-bit post to post? If this was a good thing for the community, then it should have been a buy-in. He should have let everybody know what's going on. He should have sold the program instead of trying to slide it in. Is that change? Is that the type of change that you want to see for Mooresville? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I need one for the gentleman behind me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Ed Becker, and my wife and I have owned 20 acres adjacent to the mobile home park for more than 40 years. I think I should have been notified of this and was not. I learned about it last week. I've not had time to really prepare for this the way I would like to have, but anyway. I think Ashbury Ridge would like us to believe that the further expansion of the trailer park is a good thing and it will be a benefit to Mooresville, as if bigger is better. They try to paint a picture of the trailer park as being a good neighbor and as an asset to the surrounding community. I can't speak for the rest of the neighbors, but as an adjoining property owner, I can say for myself that every time the trailer park has been allowed to expand its size, it has eroded the value of our property and it has taken away from the enjoyment we get from being a property owner. For more than 30 years, a field to the south of our property was planted in corn or some other farm crop. Then it was allowed to be rezoned and turned into trailer park lots, which encroach upon our property. We now have tons of trash. If you would, I think in the back pages of this, on the front here, this is taken from the internet. There's a blue line here that shows our property line. And it shows that across the mobile home. Ross has told me that sometimes these can be off as much as 20 feet. If it were off 20 feet to the trailer park's benefit, it'd still be encroaching on me if it's 20 feet off
to my advantage, they're probably 30 feet over on me. The back pages show numerous pictures of trash that the residents of the trailer park have pushed over on us over the years since they were allowed to develop that park. There's just tons of trash there and discarded items. I would like to see the trailer park required to clean that trash up, have a survey done and a privacy fence put up between me and them. I don't know if that can be required of them or not. I'm going to address the park's treatment plant next. When we purchased the ground, the treatment plant was controlled by the State Board of Health. I have a letter here from 1996 listing violations that have been incurred by the trailer park, and at this time they were proposing fines and penalties to be assessed against the trailer park for not operating the plant within the bounds of their permit. This next handout, I've listed numerous violations from the treatment plant that have occurred over the past couple of years. I have listed that, showed that one that I handed out in 76, a letter from 76. There's I've listed their violations from 2017, 2018, 2019, which the last time this was brought up. And then just this year, I think I've got some dates maybe a little bit off. All right. You can go on to finish, but you're within the memory, so. All right. Thank you. There's also violations in, March of 19, April, May, September of 2019, and then January this year. And the biggest thing is just a month ago, June 1st, violation reported. An emergency bypass overflow incident report was submitted to the Department of Environmental Management, IDEM, reporting a spill or release resulting in severe environmental damage. There was untreated raw sewage bypassed the treatment plant, and stated on the report that incoming raw untreated flow was more than the treatment plant could handle. As a result, the aeration tanks backed up and overflowed. When this happens, raw sewage flows onto my property and then goes on to Karen Overpeck and then on down to Sonny Perry's property and continues on to East Branch White Lake Creek. This has been an ongoing thing for nearly 50 years, ever since the mobile home park had started from the small park it was back in the 50s, early 60s. I've always been told the best indicator of future performance is past performance. And the past performance of the trailer park and operating this treatment plant has been dismal. And I don't think anything's going to change in the future, and adding more mobile home wastewater to the plant is just going to make things worse. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. ready to let Mr. Holloway?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Robert Grange, I live at 4830 East Clearview Drive. I've taken in a lot of this information tonight. I know you folks are really zeroed in on it as well. And I'm sitting here with two really nagging questions. And I'd like this commission to give me an answer to those questions before I leave town. Now, a lot of folks come up to this podium and discuss this issue tonight. Not a single one of them has been for this. Curious as to why that might be. I'd appreciate it if you could give me an answer before I leave. The other question that's nagging at me is with all of the constituents of this commission sitting in this room tonight, not a single one of them has voiced an opinion for, why in the world would you vote to approve something like this? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we respond to that?
Pardon?
Because I'm a big fat no. I am an absolute no.
Until we take the vote.
Well, he asked a question, so.
Almost everybody in here is in opposition, but one man isn't, and you guys seem to be catering.
I live here in Mooresville.
We have a process that we go through.
Well, that process seemed pretty vague at the beginning when you passed the first one. None of us had a clue what was going on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And since no one else brought it up, I wanted to wait till the last minute, in case anyone else, because didn't want to duplicate
We
anything.
still can't hear you. You can take that down.
I didn't want to duplicate anything, but I wanted to let you know that Poplar Grove is all owned by independents. The lake itself is all owned by residents. It's got no other subsidy. We are very independent. We watch the lake close. We're all very close. We're all in 100% agreement that if anything would happen to anybody in hurling a fence, or there would be any kind of accident or fatality, that would all come back to us as lake owners. And if this was to be rezoned, I think we would possibly be able to put it back on the city for making the rezone to allow this to happen. We don't want it to happen, but we can only watch what we can watch. And adding more opportunities for the young or to hurdle the fence and to come over into that space will be greatly increased if this is passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Thank you, Mr. Holloway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to address the first question is that nothing that we've done as far as application or notice or anything else was sneaky. Nothing was underhanded. Nothing was done that wasn't right to the letter of Mooresville's notice requirements for zoning and planning purposes. So I want to make that very clear. The requirement is 2 parcels deep or 600 feet. And so if the parcel's greater than 600 feet deep, only one party gets notified. So, get out of the way. Next is that I want to caution everybody, there's a lot of derogatory comments about trailer parks, trailers, mobile homes, all that stuff. These are all for manufactured housing. And whether you like it or not, manufactured housing per state statute can be placed anywhere that single-family homes are allowed as long as the requirements for single-family home is met. That means that the manufactured homes that are proposed for this area on Lot 2 could be placed on any parcel next to these folks unless they've got covenant restrictions that prohibit that. So the ag ground, things like that, you could have a manufactured home next to you tomorrow, assuming there was available lot. So, third, we are talking about affordable housing, not low-income housing. There's a vast difference. Section 8 housing is usually referred to as low-income. This is not low-income housing. This is affordable housing. And in fact, the owner will own their home. They may not own the land it's under, but that is no different at Lakeside Commons or right out here where we've got a whole development of condominiums that they don't own the ground. They just own basically to the paint on the inside of the building. Absolutely no difference. Clearview Drive, I want to make a point, is 600 feet away south through the woods, across the ravine, and probably through at least 2 rows of future homes. They will never, ever see what is taking place, or hopefully will take place on lot 2 in the manufactured homes. All of the homes that access from Poplar Grove, Orchard Road, Songbird, Clearview, and on down Pennington have for years and years and years driven by, fully visible from the road, manufactured housing that has been there, and these people still decided to build their homes where they did, move to where they did, and obviously that didn't affect their property values, even though the appraiser probably drove by the same manufactured housing on the way to do their appraisal. So 17% unemployment was mentioned. If there was ever a time, and we don't know what's going to happen in the near future with unemployment, it's high now. I hope personally it goes down to what it was back in January or February. But if there is 17 unemployment, affordable housing is going to be even more necessary than it has ever been in the past. Wildlife, I'm as much an environmentalist as everybody else, but if you want to protect wildlife, buy the property and protect the wildlife. Unless it's an endangered species, then in this state, in this country, you can do with your land as you please. If some environmental group wants to buy it, they should approach my client about doing so. Drainage. This is step 1 of a process that will go through many steps. One of which is drainage ordinance requirements for this development. So, in order for us to proceed and present a plan to this Plan Commission for approval of this section, we would have to demonstrate through Mooresville's drainage ordinance that we have actually, in fact, reduced the discharge from the pre-development to the post-development. Whether that's done with on-site retention, there's any numerous ways to do that. Maybe not even utilizing the existing lake, but if the existing lake was to be utilized, that ordinance would force us then, if we wanted to use it, to bring it up to the current standards, or the site and the project would not get approved. And lastly but not least, the wastewater treatment plant. I think that you could, for lack of a better word, say that in order for this section to be approved, the wastewater treatment plant has to show evidence, whatever that might be, of meeting current IDM standards. Now granted, Mr. Buckner's comments about the violations, I know they've had problems in the past, but their maintenance and their treatment plant operation is subbed out. They don't do it themselves, so maybe they have an issue there with their team doing that, or their subcontractor doing that. So we're here tonight, 2 issues, 2 separate votes. I assume the attorney will agree with that. One issue is the rezoning to open space on lot 1. The second issue, the second vote, would be the rezoning of lot 2, approximately 16 acres, to R3. R3 zoning, with the restrictions that we discussed earlier, does not mean we're going to rush out there tomorrow and be able to put manufactured housing on that land. It can't happen. Not without coming back to this body, presenting plans in accordance with your unified zoning ordinance meeting all those requirements, and or if we can't meet them, requesting a variance. Right now, we don't propose any variances. So that would be the process. We would hope that the process where Asbury Richards has been in the community for a long, long time has been changing over the years from, quote, trailers, single wides, for lack of a better word, to manufactured housing. If you went through there 20 years ago, there's row after row of trailers. They are gradually moving those out as the owners vacate them, and everything going back in currently would have to be manufactured housing and meeting those requirements. Remember, the same manufactured housing that could be put on any lot in Mooresville, Morgan County, Indiana, that allows single-family housing as long as it met the same requirements as a single-family home. I.e., in Mooresville, R1D is 1,000 square foot of living space and a 10,000 square foot lot on sanitary sewers and water. So that's a requirement. So anywhere in Mooresville, there's a vacant lot, you can put a manufactured home. So with that, I would ask tonight for approval of rezoning to open space on lot 1 and R3 on lot 2, and I would answer any questions you might have.
Board members, do you have questions or concerns, comments to make?
Ross, on lot 1, it shows an intermittent stream.
Yes.
Will anything be added to that to give it any more flow than what it already has?
No, because with the development that would take place under Mooresville drainage ordinance, we cannot. In fact, it would probably be reduced.
The other question is has there been a study done to see if the sewer treatment plant can handle
That, as my comment, would be something that would be appropriate, and not only appropriate, but maybe a requirement for approval of the plan that would come back here. So, and in fact, it would have to go to IDEM. And IDEM very well could say that no approval, you gotta bring your plan up to requirements or expand it or whatever necessary. So just because today we get rezoning to R3, there would be a lot of other hoops and maybe a lot of other things that would stop this from moving forward. Wastewater treatment plant might be one of those. Water capacity, water system might be one of those. That again has to have IDM approved. So those are 2 state permits that would be required before this project can move along. Besides the local requirements for stormwater and your approval, excuse me, of the development plan and the layout. So if there was problems with the wastewater treatment plant, like Mr. Buckner pointed out, and I don't deny that he knows what he's talking about, it would be a way that IDEM would basically require them to improve it, expand it, whatever, before this could be approved.
Other questions or comments from the board?
I have a couple of questions. The drainage today, and what we now have is lot 2 and lot 1, does the drainage from lot 2 go into lot 1?
Drainage from lot 2, a portion of it goes south. There's a ridge sort of through the middle of lot 2. So a portion goes south and a portion goes to the west.
To the west, okay.
What drains into the lake, Ross?
Approximately half of the lot to the west, basically the west half, maybe not quite the whole west half, but the west half of the 15 acres.
Does the pond have an adequate overflow, and then there's an emergency spillway?
That pond and all of Asbury Ridge was approved back before there was a stormwater ordinance. So it probably, quite frankly, doesn't meet any standards because it was developed before there were any. But there again, going back to the wastewater treatment plant issue that Mark was talking about, it very well could be that this body could say, and the stormwater ordinance would perhaps require it, if we went to that basin, it would have to be brought up to standards or we wouldn't get approval. That's simple. And whether that requires reconstruction of the dam, enlargement of the dam, enlarging the spillway, it could be all kinds of things, because what happens when we submit those drawings and those calculations, nobody here in this room approves it. They go out to an independent consulting engineer in Indianapolis. They send back comments through the staff. We address the comments. If we can't address the comments that they come up with, that they are doing to review the ordinance, then we don't get approval. If we don't get stormwater approval, the project is dead.
Who is responsible for the spillway, the spillway and then the emergency spillway? And I think the picture she showed us was the emergency spillway.
It would be the owner of Ashbury Ridge, the existing property north, which is this Doherty.
Thank you.
So if I heard you correctly, that if this was approved, that the pond, if it is in, because it was developed before the standards, would have to be brought up to current standards in order to receive the runoff that is coming from this, if it is inadequate. Is that what I heard you say?
If we could not devise a method of retention that did not require that pond, and I can tell you right now that would be extremely difficult, then yes, we would have to bring it up to your current standards. No different than if you got a detention basin out here in any subdivision, that has to meet current requirements of your stormwater ordinance, and to a certain extent there are some state requirements too. Which gets us back to Mark's question about the stream down there. There are wetlands down there and along the stream. Maybe pretty extensive, haven't had a map, but that would be an issue that would keep us from doing anything down there. From an agricultural standpoint though, as ag ground, you could run cattle or sheep or whatever you wanted down there, and there's nothing to prevent them from getting into the creek, getting into the stream, or whatever they want to do, because it's ag ground. And in Indiana, there's no prohibition from agricultural operations basically fouling the streams, unless it's a fine feeding operation, which is a whole different. You want to see an example, drive 144 out east, and you'll see a cattle operation on the right. There's a little pond in the lower area there. This is what this could be if it was ag ground and there was animals raised on it. But if it's open space and we develop it, then even if we were to do something to the wetlands, you know, there are IDEM requirements for like ratios for mitigation, 4-to-1, 3-to-1, depending on what the impact is. So you don't get away free.
On that point, I'm assuming that if this was zoned open space, you'd be very limited in what you could do in that space to do any changes to drainage in there.
That is correct.
And today, this whole piece of property has no managed drainage at all. It runs wherever it wants to run.
That's right.
Okay.
That's correct. In fact, it's completely undeveloped. As ag ground, it could, you know, tomorrow, it could be clear cut, or it could be whatever wanted to happen. That's what it would be.
Okay. To the point, the question about the pictures that we had of debris and trash and things like that, I'm assuming also as open space that would be restricted. I mean, there would not be allowed to have any kind of that kind of material would not be allowed into Lot 1.
We can. I mean, we didn't bring any commitments tonight for Lot 1. However, I mean, I think we're open to some commitments for Lot 1 that would run with the zoning.
I mean, I think as a point of course that Lot 1 would not be allowed to have that kind of material put into it because it would be a violation of that zoning.
And our attorney might have to step in and help us with the language, but I mean, I think there could be some type of commitment that it must be maintained and trash not be allowed to collect.
Maybe the barrier between the two could be.
Or something. So, and you know, allowing trash to collect it is a double-edged sword, because there could be just as much trash come from the south, Country View Estates, when it's fully developed, as there could be from the north.
Just as a point of clarity, to the north of this is the current Ashbury Ridge, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the restrictions that you're offering here are not existing in the current Ashbury Ridge.
That is correct.
So these are, what you're proposing is more restrictive than what is in the current Ashbury Ridge.
As far as I know, there are no zoning restrictions whatsoever on the existing Ashbury Ridge.
And it is zoned R3.
I believe it is
today.
zoned R3.
Could you speak to the issue that the fire people had about getting a fire truck in there and fighting the fires and that the street's adequate?
I briefly addressed that earlier, but your Unified Zoning Ordinance, Development Ordinance, has very stringent and strict guidelines, not guidelines, requirements for street size, lot size, radiuses and things like that for manufactured home parks, manufactured home developments. And we would have to adhere to those, and those, by the way, to a certain extent are greater than it would be for a single family development. As far as access goes, when it comes time for approval of the plan, since we don't have any direct access to Pennington Road for Lot 2, because that's our commitment, you might very well say you need a traffic study and you need to widen the streets or something like that. I don't know what it would be to satisfy the fire requirements. And if that can't be done, then you don't get approved, because it has to come back here and we have to meet the requirements of UDO and any other requirements that you might have that you feel for the health and safety of the community.
So if I heard you correctly, if this was developed in the future, that there might have to be improvements to Ashbury Ridge as it exists today in order to, because the access to this is coming through there. So access, if there are concerns about fire trucks and other types of things going through, which was probably grandfathered in because it was done before our current standards, that there might have to be improvements even from there to Pennington Road within the current Ashbury Ridge in order to make this adequate.
And that's correct. I mean, because Ashbury Ridge, as it stands today, basically was grandfathered in because it's been there for 50 years or plus years, whatever. So it's no requirements on it at all. But this has to come back to you for your specific approval for the plan. And if you don't think the plan can meet the requirements of the ordinance, and one of those is access, fire emergency, things like that, water, sewer, then you don't approve it, and we don't go anywhere until we address your concerns or your requirements, and that's it. So there's a lot of things that have to happen before we get to that point. A lot of engineering costs, a lot of things like that, which is why no one, regardless of what kind of development you got, whether it's single-family homes, industrial, commercial, what, you don't do anything as far as construction drawings or construction plans or permitting go to get the zoning in place. Otherwise, it's a waste of time and money.
So just for my benefit to have it on the record, if this were approved tonight, then we would still have to have a public meeting where you would present a plan of what this would look like in terms of lot size, in terms of layout, in terms of drainage, all those things, the IDEM permits, all that would be addressed in a future meeting that would be just like this as a public meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's what your ordinance requires.
Okay, thank you.
So, one last comment. You know, last time we were here, and all these folks were here, two things. We do have Ashbury folks here. Just because they didn't speak doesn't mean they're not for the project. I had hands up, there was like 8 of them. So the whole crowd isn't against this, even though they didn't speak. The last thing is that last time I talked about not in my backyard, NIMBY, but there's a bigger picture here. The Plan Commission's requirement is to look at the economic, health, welfare of the entire community. Whether that's not just the folks that live next door, or the folks that live like 1,060 feet across the lake and will never ever see a manufactured home in this development. It's the welfare, economic and otherwise, of entire citizens of the Mooresville area, maybe the county. So is there a need for affordable housing? I think there is. Quite frankly, if there isn't, Mr. Doherty won't be doing this, that's for sure. If the economy has a downturn, there's even going to be more of affordable need need for affordable housing. And I would argue with anybody that this affordable housing is better than Section 8 housing and some of those other large apartment complexes that do cause a lot of heartache for the community in a lot of ways. So everybody deserves a place to live. Manufactured housing is an affordable way to get people in their own home, no different than a condominium right up the street, no different than condominiums in Lakeside, no different. They own the home, they don't own the land. So this notion about if it has wheels, it's a trailer, that's not true. Manufactured housing is manufactured to stringent requirements that the state has, Federal Housing Authority has, and HUD has. And I would say, for the most part, a lot of them are better built than a lot of the stick-built housing, particularly some of the cheaper models. So we provided evidence tonight, written evidence, about the economic impact, that there is none. You've heard some testimony that says, well, I'm in the real estate and I think there will be. We provided written evidence that's for the record. And so that should go some ways towards helping you make a reasonable decision. And I'm going to sit down unless there's more questions.
Other comments or questions from the board?
One other comment just in general. I'll not get myself in trouble because I usually open my mouth too much. I think it's appropriate for all the planning commission members to hear all the evidence and all the presentation before making up their mind and speaking their opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board?
I just don't feel like anything that these residents have come up and said was properly addressed. I don't see how this manufactured home development is helpful to Mooresville, to property values, to wildlife. I'm just unconvinced, Mr. Holloway, with all due respect. I'm unconvinced that this is good for Mooresville. That's it.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Do we have a motion to rezone the property lot number? Two separate. We want to take one first. We'll take lot one, lot two, rezone lot two from ag to R3.
I think there's a lot of drainage questions, sewer questions.
Pardon?
I think there's a lot of questions that haven't been answered. I know there's drainage issues in Mooresville. I know there's sewer problems in Mooresville.
Okay, I've asked if there is a motion.
Well, nobody's saying anything.
Go ahead.
I just think there's a lot of questions about this development that I'm just not comfortable rezoning it at all. And we're not talking about it. I mean, these sewer problems, this isn't new. Is this new to anybody? That there's sewer problems in Mooresville, there's drainage issues? I couldn't get across the other side of Pennington. I'm terrible with names. When there was all that rain, I couldn't get across the road. And that's right where this is. And we're talking about where's the water gonna go? And we're gonna add 40 trailers.
Excuse me, I asked if there were any further questions.
I thought you asked for comments.
And when you said no, then I asked for a motion.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I mean, I want you to speak.
Well, I was speaking, but.
But I asked for a motion because everyone said that we were ready for it.
Okay.
We have no motion to approve or deny. Well, then, it will be continued.
I think we need to have a vote to continue if that's the wishes of the board and the reasons if I could indulge you. And there would have to be two motions, open space or
Well,
lot.
we can get, okay, do we have a motion relative to the open space? Going from ag to open space, do we have a motion on that?
Can I ask a question before that, to the petitioner? If we made that motion to make that open space, does that affect what happens on lot 2 from your perspective?
Technically, they are standalone requests. They were advertised separately. They're two different applications.
Okay.
They could stand alone, but in all candor, without the open space, the R3 won't go anywhere because it would be more advantageous to my client to keep it ag, keep the whole thing ag. The practical side of that, though, is that if the Plan Commission desires to rezone Lot 1, recommend rezoning Lot 1 to open space, then we would take that to the council for approval or denial. If Lot 2 was continued, it would be more than likely that we would not take Lot 1 to the council because we have, I believe, 90 days from today's date to take it to the council for action. I believe it's 90 days.
Thank you.
Is it appropriate to ask, oh, did you have something else?
Well, I mean,
Sorry.
so the first issue in front of you that you asked for was lot 2.
Yes.
And so the planning commission basically has 3 options. You can recommend,
Deny or continue.
deny, well, I guess it's 4 of them. Continue or make no
No
recommendation. And then so with the recommended, recommending an adverse recommendation, so a rejection of it, or a no recommendation, of those 3 options, it would get passed on to the council for the council's consideration, based upon what was coming at it here. If you choose to continue it, you'll need to take an action to vote to have that continue to later.
Thank you.
But quite frankly, we would ask for some kind of vote tonight and not continue it. I don't see any new issues coming up. We've rehashed this in September. I would like to see.
I wouldn't necessarily, there's no issues.
Well, no.
There's some issues. I mean, we need to get in touch with IDEM to find out if we need to handle this.
Let me, with all due respect,
So,
that
certainly more issues.
there might be more issues down the road. Today, though, it's straight up zoning requests. Like I said, if there are issues coming up, should the zoning be approved, that's perfectly right. You can contact IDEM, you can do whatever you want. That doesn't affect the R3 zoning because we have to come back with the plan. And if we don't have satisfactory answers for IDEM or whoever, it doesn't go anywhere. But that doesn't affect the R3 zoning. So continuation, probably, I believe Mr. Buckner's reports, he probably got them from IDEM's website. That's fine, but it doesn't affect the R3 zoning. It will affect the development plan that might be presented to you in the future. I hope I answered that.
Thank you. But that was, I just wanted to clarify that. Given Mr. Holloway's, I think you're still asking for a motion on lot 1?
Lot 1.
Are we on lot?
Okay.
You tell me, are we
on lot 2 or lot, so,
we need to decide to fade a lot 2 first?
so that was what was called first.
Gotcha, okay, all right.
And so, I mean, my recommendation to the plan commission would be to have a motion for this council, the plan commission to vote on, whether it be a favorable recommendation or a motion for an unfavorable recommendation, or a motion for no recommendation, or a continue.
On lot 1.
On lot 2.
No, 2. Lot 2.
On lot 2.
First.
Okay, all right.
So that said, do we have a motion in regards to the 4 options that Jewel just mentioned?
I'll make a motion on lot 2 based upon the discussions that I've heard here, that we make a continuance on lot 2. And we, at the same time, give Mr. Holloway and his client the rationale that we want to make that continuance, that there are issues that are still outstanding that the board members feel uncomfortable with, and provide those so he can respond to those appropriately at the next meeting. I'll make that motion.
And that be the sewer, the erosion, and
Whatever the issues are, a continuance until the next meeting on lot 2.
we have a motion for continuance based on that.
I'll second.
We got a second. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Call opposed.
No.
All of it opposed?
I reject it. Sorry.
So are you voting opposed?
I'm opposed to it.
Thank you. Now, we go to lot 1. Do we have a motion based on the same 4 options that you have mentioned?
Since these 2 lots are separate and they're 2 separate petitions, I think one of the things that we're incumbent to do is to look at the best use of the property. Lot 1 being rezoned from ag to open space is more restrictive based upon all the comments that people had out here, the concerns about the other environmental concerns, other things. This being more restrictive, I'll make a motion that we accept or recommend the rezoning from ag to open space for lot 1.
Do we have a second on that? All those in favor of rezoning ag to open space? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait a minute.
And you're
We get
both-
counted.
I'm opposed.
Okay, all those
And then-
opposed? Motion carries.
Did you get those, Chris?
Thank you very much. We will see you next month with lot 2.
At this time, we'll take a break, and the people that were here can,
When's the next meeting?
When is our next meeting scheduled?
next meeting is
Chris, did you know what our next meeting is?
I believe July 9th. 1 second.
July 9th.
July 9th,
July
yes.
9th.
The drive out there. Take another drive out there.
Sure, absolutely. Did you have a question for him?
Well, or both of you, either one of you.
Hi, I'm from the reporter. I just wanted to clarify for lot 1, the second vote, you voted a favorable recommendation, right? I just didn't hear.
What we voted,
It's hard to talk through these.
was continuance on this lot.
In order, let me ask a question, because I don't know. In order to make a zoning,
The 2 lots. We took this one piece and made it into 2.
Yep.
in
So that was
order,
This was continued
Okay.
for to the next meeting.
Next meeting, right.
Recommended to be continued. And then this was recommended to be improved from ag to open space.
Okay, and that was recommended.
Recommended to the
approve-
council.
Okay,
To the
you were
council.
recommending to the council. And the council, does the council have to approve the continuation as well?
Technically, yeah.
But they
there's
will.
Not, there's
It's
not a
like
reason not to.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
And so the next decision will go to the council. Would it be the next council meeting for lot 1?
I'm assuming it goes on their agenda.
Okay.
It's up to them as to when they want to hear it.
Right.
But
You don't have to-
usually it is.
Okay.
So they can either accept our recommendation or not
Sure.
on this.
Okay.
Actually, they could accept a recommendation on this too. So,
Even though you didn't recommend, they could.
they could approve it.
Okay.
Because we make a recommendation, we don't approve
But
it. So
likelihood is
likelihood
they'll send it back to you.
they'll recognize our, if we had denied it or no recommendation, then it'd be much more likely to do something. But these 2 probably will continue on. I would guess. So you can certainly ask. I would say if you go to the council meeting, you can find out.
Sure. I'm just covering for Lance this week, this month. It's a good month to
Yeah.
come in without knowing anything.
No,
but-
that's fine. That's
Yeah,
fine.
so cool. I appreciate your help. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I know.
I assume the next portion will be a little shorter.
I think the next ones will go fairly quick.
You're on target, some Allison Road.
My first meeting. Not my first time. I live
What,
here January.
can someone explain to me what's going to change from this continuance to make this any better?
Well,
I don't understand.
there, what I heard, well, as you heard our attorney say, we had 4 options.
Is that who he is?
That's our attorney.
Okay.
We can approve, we can recommend, the council actually makes the decision. We actually,
Who is the council?
Town council. The
So
town
that's not
council.
who this is?
This is the planning commission.
Okay.
We review it and then make a recommendation to them. Sometimes we can approve things like the plat approvals, that is approved by us. But zoning changes are a recommendation to the council, and they don't have to follow that, but they usually do.
Can I steal back? I gave you all of my copies of the resolution. Could I get one of them back?
No recommendation, meaning we just push on to
I was going to say Brown.
So what we did
What,
was
are you-
we continued this, I recommended continuing.
Okay.
Because I heard.
Okay, yeah, well, that was a rough year for you.
Issues that were not yet resolved.
It was a very rough year.
That they could really
But it's
make
been like,
a good decision.
you know, 100 roughly for us, so.
There were concerns, and so.
It was denied last
That's
August
correct. That's
on
correct.
the
That was a fun
same
series.
issues.
Did you get to go to any of them? Did
Right
you?
now,
I wish we would
right
have,
on my back
but
deck,
we didn't.
I can see
We're about ready
through the
to
woods.
start the meeting.
I can hear people talking. When there's heavy rain, this creek is flooded. You go laying a bunch of cement pads through there, adding 40 more trailers, it's gonna be horrendous. You're gonna flood that creek. And this pond, when we have heavy rain, it overflows, it washes out the edge of Pennington, and then the county has to come in and lay down gravel on the edge of the road to keep it from collapsing. That's our tax money doing that.
I understand your concerns. I live in the buffer zone. I live on Rooker Road, right across from Rooker Trace and Rooker Run. Are you familiar with where that is? You know where, I'm sorry. I live across from Rooker Trace and Rooker Run on Rooker Road itself. If you're
Rooker
familiar,
Road, yeah.
You know where Rooker Trace is, the new home.
Right before you get to
Neil
Wendy's.
Armstrong and Wendy's.
Right.
And I can't speak to your issue out here because I've not lived out there. But I can tell you my personal experience. From what, we bought our house and it was all cornfield across the street. And the reason why people sold it was because something like this was going to happen and they didn't want to live there. So they built all those homes across the street.
We're going
from me.
to begin
What I
in 2
found
minutes.
was that the uncontrolled drainage that was occurring across the street that was actually affecting my property got better with a new development because they had to control what was on that property versus just letting it do whatever it wants to do today. So it would surprise me if the drainage did not improve because, as he said, there are no restrictions.
We will call the meeting to order.
The drainage, listen, the drainage cannot improve if you put cement slabs in there.
Well,
where's it gonna drain to? It can't drain through cement.
We're going to begin
They'll
the
have
meeting.
to.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I understand, and I appreciate your concerns, and I appreciate you letting me know that. So we can address that at the next meeting too.
Next item on the agenda is RDC resolution.
That's unbelievable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we're still missing a few members. I'm happy to start with, at your desire, Mr. Chairman, but we'll also not move.
Our meeting is still going on. Will you please leave?
Mr. Taylor, could you please go out in the hallway and see if our 2 members are out there and call it now? Thank you very much, sir.
While you're doing that, has everyone
Okay.
looked at the resolutions provided in your packet? Does anybody need a copy? Thank
You got 2 copies there?
I have extras.
Okay. I could pull it up on my computer, but I.
So I can
Oh,
just.
we're okay.
You're good? Okay.
Oh, she's got it. Chelsea, if you've got an extra copy, she might want a
Yes,
copy.
absolutely. I will find.
I have a question on
Do you want the?
This as well.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Is this what was supposed to be first on the meeting?
Yeah, this
Is this what was
the
originally first on the agenda?
No, this is number 6. Originally was number 6.
Okay, thank you.
You didn't do this, did you? Do you want the actual folder with the stuff? Okay, if you've got what you need. Okay, I've got it if you need it. I just don't want to lose track of it.
Is she coming back?
I didn't see her out.
Did she take her things?
No, her personal stuff. She'll be back.
She'll be back. She said the rest.
Oh, she'll be back.
We'll give her a couple more minutes.
Oh,
Thank
here
you.
she is. Here she is.
And she handed you a handout.
We got some copies of what she's going
Okay.
to talk.
We're ready.
Very
Thank you,
good.
everyone.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Chelsea Manns. I'm here on behalf of the Mooresville Redevelopment Commission. Thank you for your time. Back in, I believe it was September of 2019, the Redevelopment Commission's attorney, Adam Sturwell with Barnes and Thornburg, came before you when we were in the process of creating a new allocation area, which we were successful in doing. We called that the 2019 Mooresville allocation area, which is it's the 100 acres previously known as the Pollard property. We're now calling Mooresville Business Center on the south end of town. So that happened, we were successful, we came before this body, went through the entire process at the end of 2019. What we are doing now, we have before you, you should have had a copy of the resolution that the Redevelopment Commission passed in May of 2020, which is a resolution to amend the declaratory resolution in the Economic Development Plan. So what that document did is we are essentially pulling out roughly 56 acres from the 100 acres that we previously put into an allocation area to be a new allocation area, which is the nice pack allocation area. So this is this basically coincides with the incentives and the economic development agreement that we have with nice pack. So this is really more of a formality, but you have a resolution before you, which essentially says that it coincides with the master land use plan. Again, this 56 acres that we're discussing is already in an allocation area. We're pulling it out of that one to create its own separate allocation area. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but it's really straightforward.
Does the timeline start over for that area?
No bonds have, there hasn't been any bonds issued, so there isn't a timeline yet, as of yet.
Is it because Nice Pack is expanding? Is that?
Yeah, so it's part of the, and Julie, you can feel free to jump in here if you'd like. It's part of the incentive package, and if you actually go to the last page of the resolution that the Redevelopment Commission passed, it gives you a little bit, the Nice Pack plan supplement. It gives you a little bit more definition. Again, Nice Pack has agreed to a roughly $80 million investment, which is going to go on that 56 acres. And through all of our negotiations, which Jules has been a part of, based on representations of the company, the commission has determined that the development will not proceed as planned without contribution of land and the tax increment revenues. So in order to do that, we have to carve that out specifically so that it's only tied to revenues derived by Nice Pack and that it's not any of the other taxing units.
That was really very well said. So the way it works is with tax increment financing. So that value it's an empty lot right now, so there's not much value to it. Once Nice Pack builds its new location there, the assessed valuation will go up. So what you're doing is you're capturing that increment. Right now it's being captured by the redevelopment. You're going to cut out this other area, so you can just have that sole increment that Nice Pack's development is going to increase, and then you're utilizing that for the incentive program. So if there's, what this does is it protects the Redevelopment Commission in town from other developments going in around, and Nice Pack capturing that increment as well. This is solely going to be the Nice Pack.
Any other questions or comments? So this goes to the town council after.
This will go to the town council and then it will again go for the redevelopment commission.
A hearing.
Yes, correct.
So we just make a recommendation to the town council on our vote.
We would ask that you approve this resolution, which has been I believe you've reviewed it, but it was prepared by our attorney, Adam Stewart.
Any further questions? Do we have a motion to send this with a favorable recommendation to the county council? Oh, sorry.
This is going to be a resolution from the plan commission. There will be a separate one for the county to consider. So you will be taking action on this resolution itself. So it's going to be an action to either approve
or deny.
Or deny.
I understand, but they're going to get the same resolution.
They're going to get a resolution that's going to
But
basically mirror
that's
this.
what I understand.
But it's not a separate resolution.
Do we have a motion, please?
Yes, motion to accept.
Do we have a second?
Mark?
I have a second. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, Kelsey.
Can I either get your signature if I may, or can I get a copy from you? Happy to do it, whichever.
You need a signature?
Yes, please.
Can I have an extra one? I'm sorry? Can I have an extra one? I'm sorry. Thank you. I'll help.
I don't have a different resolution number than what was the resolution number?
Yeah, I'll get it, that's okay. Thank you very much. I'll find the resolution number and I will.
Getting tired of typing this
Thank you guys.
And then can we have a copy for our file of what you have done?
I have full
Yes.
confidence.
Yes, I will.
Scan it, send it to Christie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
I'm just glad that you're willing to do it.
Be safe.
Thank you.
There's the majority with all the
Oh,
pictures.
okay.
I got
Yeah,
4
yeah.
pictures.
Okay.
John, do you want to begin? The next item on the agenda is a continuance at Heartland Crossing.
Yes, thank you. I'm John Larison, Holloway Engineering, 100 Professional Court in Mooresville. We started this petition for Mr. Boland. He is the buyer of this property. This is Outlot 1, 4.5 acres, outlot in Heartland Crossing, located at the intersection of County Line Road and Heartland Boulevard. This has sat empty since Heartland Crossing originally developed. It's always been owned by a church, and we were petitioning for a zoning change from PUD to the B1 zoning exclusively for a church. We were also petitioning for a special exception to allow the establishment of a child care, church-affiliated child daycare. There's some question as to where we left off. This was before the Plan Commission in January, and it was my belief that we had received a favorable zoning referral for the zoning change. Yes.
And the council took action on that rezoning as well.
Very good, okay. Having said that, we have a question as to whether or not we need now to go to the BZA or to the Plan Commission to get the first approval for the child care. And I'm going to leave that up to you. I believe that this board voted for a continuance and asked us to go to the BZA first and then come back to you. Since 5 months have passed, there's a little question on that, so.
Anybody remember the specifics?
John, what was the reason for you guys to go to the BCA?
Well,
Then come back to the plan commission?
Well,
BCA should have the ruling.
The special exception, it was our interpretation that the special exception had to get the approval of both BZA and the Plan Commission.
No.
That may not be the case anymore under the new zoning ordinance.
I think the special exception would go to planning, the BZA,
BZA has the final.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And your special exception for it is to get approval for the child daycare center.
It is, yes.
If I remember it correctly, I think the issue was, this was kind of the timing of when we started the BZA meeting and the planning commission meeting on the same
Same
time.
day, that's right.
And so the rezoning issue was the first, because we needed to get it rezoned first. And then, so that's why at the BZA meeting, which was before the planning commission meeting, it was continued out of the BZA meeting for the special exception. Once the rezoning went through, it was gonna come back to the BZA for the special exception. And so that, I think that's what that continuance thing was. And so we just need to, but what I don't remember now is if it ever came back to the BZA. 'Cause
Yeah, I don't believe it did. I think that was right on the
yeah, I think that what happened is we just did not get to come back. So I think what it would be proper is to now, since it's been rezoned and actions be taken by the council, just come back to the BZA
That's
for a
right.
special exception.
For the special
daycare
exception,
center.
for the daycare center.
And we're not in a hurry for this, so there's no problem with waiting another month. I would ask, is there a requirement then to re-notify at this point? Or because we have been continued and due to the
Pandemic.
Yeah.
The safest way possible is to re-notify, then nobody can bring a claim or action saying that something was.
Very good. We'll happily do that, so, thank you.
I think that makes sense.
I think that's a good idea.
So, I know that's electrical work, but I think she's right. That, I mean, it is a BZA question, but I do think that they would probably appreciate that if it was re-notified.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next item is a County Line Road. A couple issues.
Mike, are we going to take the rezone first?
Whatever one you want.
It's up to
Both
you.
of them are complicated.
I will take care of the rezone first then.
Do you have any preference?
Did we determine, I think, isn't it more
Well,
complicated if we do the rezone first?
The two are interdependent.
Yeah.
And we're rezoning a portion of a lot that is currently residential and another one that is currently industrial. We're moving the boundaries just a bit to accommodate one of the lots and changing the zoning from ag to industrial to match the rest of the lot that we're combining it with.
Wouldn't it be easier to do the plat first?
I'm here at your discretion,
I think
whichever
it'd
way
be
you
easier
like.
to define our lines first and then determine the zoning afterwards. I think it'd be clearer as to what we're doing. I realize that you don't want one without the other.
Is this behind the transmission shop?
It is, yes.
Exactly.
I am giving you a copy of the second
Thank you.
replat of Allison's second minor plat. As well
I
as,
think I got two of the same. Are they?
Oh, keep that one because I'm gonna give it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I don't have a red one.
okay.
So do you have another red
I
one?
need to keep, you will need the one without the color.
Okay.
Okay, I'm giving you a copy of the second replat of the second Allison minor plat.
Allison transmission out on
As well as
kind of on the way to
the new plat we're considering tonight, which is the
hospital and
Allison
stuff.
first
So
minor
that
plat and Allison's second minor plat.
they'll explain what's going on, but just context you.
And it really isn't as
They're just saying
complicated as
kind
it
of-
sounds. In fact, we're here for a very simple reason tonight. I'll explain to you.
Don't you like how he says simple?
Yeah, this is much simpler than the first issue.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The redevelopment issue is much
But this,
simpler.
well, you'll have to explain it.
You're just trying to get their zoning for their business.
There's some inconsistencies in the boundaries.
If you would all look at the second replat of Allison's second minor plat, that's the color plat. That is the current state of affairs, and I just want to call your attention to the fact that Richard and Laura live at the intersection of County Line Road and Ferguson Road. And that property that they live on is zoned ag. It has a single-family house on it and a garage, and it's zoned ag.
That's the 4.3 acres.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, next to it, and east of it, is the A&A Automotive Transmission. That's the Allison traditional building that they've always done the transmission business. And then we have two minor plats. And if you look here with me, this is the Allison first minor plat. It is that part that joins Ferguson Road, south of Richard's home. Everything else that you're looking at here, except for the A&A Automotive shop, is the second minor plat. Okay? And that's how things stand right now. The Allison second minor plat is all zoned industrial. So the reason that we're here tonight is we want to establish an access for lot number 1 in the second minor plat out to County Line Road. Almost all of that, in fact, about 40 feet of the 50-foot wide strip that we're establishing as a driveway comes off of Allison's home plot, which is zoned agriculture. The rest of it comes off of the automotive transmission shop. We've divided that and set aside this L-shaped 50-foot wide strip out to County Line Road, and it meets all of your zoning setbacks for each of those two buildings. And the purpose of that, again, is to provide access to County Line Road for what we are now calling Lot 1A.
3.1 acres.
That's right, 3.1 acres.
So they're establishing
It's beneficial
this
for
and this, so that they
Mr.
can get
Allison
access
for
to this
agreements.
and not have to get access here.
The best portion, the most
Because there's
built
already
portion of Lot 1A
So we could come here.
is well over on the east end of the property.
Be difficult with this intersection.
That's where the building will be built. Future on Lot 1A, just a lot better portion of the lot to the west.
Sure.
That'll also
These are
keep
two
you from having to build
separated.
that.
And
Oh,
what they're doing is putting it all on
500-foot
one.
long driveway off
So
of
that
Ferguson
these
Road.
all are.
I think it also has the benefit of keeping the industrial traffic off of Ferguson Road as well, which I think is a positive.
I agree.
for us. This plat also addresses one other concern. If you notice, I'm going to hand out an aerial photo. You'll notice that Rick has built a second building behind his original automotive shop. And then he built a breezeway to walk from one to the other. And that's fine while you own the property yourself. It is a zoning violation, and, I mean, it's across a lot line. Technically, it's just not a problem from a zoning standpoint. As long as he owns it, I doubt anybody would have ever said anything. But we are here to clear up that problem as well. And so we're creating Lot 1B, 3.23 acres, so that he no longer has his building straddling the lot line. And that brings all of his commercial automotive buildings onto one piece of ground as well. It just cleans it up for the Allisons. That is the extent of the changes. It does require, unfortunately, in order to do that, because these are platted lots, it requires a replat, and that's why we're here tonight. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So we're gonna take the replat before the rezone?
I think we should. You should, because you're gonna rezone the newly platted area.
Yeah, correct.
So questions on the replat?
The plat first.
Motion to accept the plat.
Any questions or comments on the plat? So you're merging B3, I, and A, right?
Yes, we are.
So then they're really
Cutting part of this
they're making that
off over here, and then taking part of this off over here, and then they combine it here.
making that L right there.
Right.
So
What they're doing is they're combining these two.
correct.
So you're taking part of this one and then this one, and cutting this part off of this, and
Right.
making that as part of this.
Right.
and drive.
It seemed like a good idea when he broached it, and then I got looking at it and I thought, well, yeah, not only that, but we can make it 50 feet wide and meet the town setback requirements. So, pretty good opportunity, I think, for both Rick and for the neighborhood.
Questions, John from the planning commission? Comments? Anyone from the audience? Guy in a camouflage mask? Back to the planning commission, do we have a motion to accept the replat?
Motion to accept.
Second. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Now we would go to the pre-zone.
Now that we've created a system.
Yes, and the rezone, I've got that separate exhibit for you for this. The part that we're rezoning again is that narrow strip that will serve as the driveway, the location for the driveway.
Thank you, Mr. Deaver.
They're actually, this shows the existing driveway line.
I see, okay.
So what we did, when we went from this to this, we created an inconsistency. Now we have multiple zones happening, but we had to create the inconsistency and then clean it up.
Right, right.
Does that make sense?
Yep, yep.
So we could have done it either way. but I
Now we're
think-
doing that.
Yes. Now
Yeah.
we're,
Right away.
And again, our purpose for being here for the rezone is simply so that the entire lot falls under the same zoning category. I will. Do you have any questions?
Questions or comments? Anyone from the audience wish to speak?
Okay.
If there are no further questions or comments, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept the rezone as presented.
All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You get that, Chris?
JD, second.
Next item on the agenda is the primary plat for, it says the road.
I'll make you sign all the paperwork. I just got something.
You got enough for everybody down here? You'll like it here. You're putting all this in the files, right?
I am.
You're I've still got some things for you.
Okay.
Thanks.
You can look at them and add anything you want.
Okay, this is a very simple minor plat, a single division of 17.9 acres. It's the intersection of State Road 42 and Bethesda Road. This property has been held by the Durham family for many years. The Durham homestead that many of you are probably familiar with is right across the street. Jasper Durham is the father of John, and John is our petitioner and would like to build a house on Lot 1. For those of you that might not be familiar with this property, it's the one with the little pond on it. Goats and sheep are raised on it. And John would like to build a home on Lot 1, and they'd like to continue to run the sheep farming operation on Lot 2. So there is no plan for any building on Lot 2. We have had the soils tested and turned those in to you. They are adequate for a septic field, and the lot will be serviced by Hill Water, so it will be on public water and septic field. Again, the lot meets your 2-acre minimum, and if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
You're showing primary and secondary septic. Any questions or comments from the board? Do we have a motion? Oh, wait, anyone from the audience?
How many sheep are there?
It's not confined feeding, so it doesn't matter.
Could you remove yourself from the meeting?
Yeah, relevant question.
Enough?
Having it in that paper,
It's a good thing you didn't ask the number of male versus females.
Less than in February now, social distancing.
Christie, put that in the minutes, please.
Okay.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I did.
Do we have a motion to accept the?
Motion to accept.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is, I think, on Harlan Drive.
Hey, John? That's your signed copy from the previous one. Oops, I got it.
Here's one for.
I'll need one for the pen in the back.
Well, not, no, but I just said that house is so old.
Well, that front lawn had a house that tore down.
Well,
That's still really separates the building.
interesting that they threw the house down.
Well, the White House right on River Street.
Really? That's cool. It was a neat thing we did. I wanted to see how they were gonna get that stuff out.
They go to that. You trying to bring things.
There you go.
Are you ready, sir?
Anytime you are, Mr. Chairman.
I'm ready.
I will be brief to the point, but first I want to apologize to the Tech Review Committee. I inadvertently misled them because I didn't think any variances would be required, because I was thinking in the old days when R1D was 8,000 square feet, now it's 10. So I would request tonight approval of this vacate and replat contingent upon receiving BZA approval for lot size from 8,721 to 10,000 square feet, which we would intend to do at next month's meeting. With that being said, this is on Harlan Drive, just to the east of Indianapolis Road on Bridge Street, north side. There was an old house, foundation is still there on Lot 1A. A house that is on Lot 1B, proposed Lot 1B, was moved from facing Samuel Moore Parkway across what was Suncoast Lot, still is, to the rear of this lot. So currently today, they are in compliance, so there's no violation. However, like I said, we would like approval of this plat, vacate and replat for 2 lots, contingent upon receiving BZA approval for the lot area. If that doesn't happen, obviously, this will exercise the next move.
Thank you, yeah.
Are they on septic or what?
They own city sewer.
City.
And you can see there's an easement along the south side of Lot 1A that allows the sanitary sewer from Lot 1B to get to the sanitary sewer that is about at the southeast corner of Lot 1A. And in fact, the sanitary sewer has already been installed, and that's why the width is 18 feet and not 20 or something like that, because since it was already in, we just went 3 feet beyond where it physically was constructed. 40-foot building setback lines meet the ordinance. Width to depth would meet the ordinance. Everything would meet the ordinance except for the lot area. And we would request a variance for that at the next meeting.
Questions from or comments from the planning commission?
I was concerned about the drainage on that property because it flooded on a rain here recently. I talked to Keith and said that they're going to fill that in with the dirt trucks, or they're going to build it.
Yep.
Yeah, they had put underground retention on where they're putting it, so there's going to be a lot of excess material.
So, well, I was concerned because if you look, a lot of that drainage comes in from the property to the north.
Right.
But he said they're going to fill in that, swale it, move that water out.
In fact, the drainage situation could be dramatically improved because all the water from the lot to the west has to stay on site, go to the underground retention system. So there should be no water running east of the house, whereas now there is significant. So the drainage, overall drainage for the entire area would be improved.
That's across the street.
Yeah.
Question from the sheep farmer?
What's that?
Questions from the sheep farmer? Any questions from the audience? Concerns? Back to the planning commission. Okay, with the understanding that he's going to come back to BCA next month.
That's correct.
And
request
get
a
a variance
variance
from 8,700 to 10,000.
That's correct. From 10,000 to
10,000 to 8,700, sorry.
Right, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Do we have a motion?
From 10,000?
From 10,000 to 8721.
Put it the other way.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Okay, did you get that, Christie?
No, I'm sorry.
Alan Bond made the motion.
Mr. Allenbaugh made the motion, and John made
the second.
Yeah.
One last thing, I got the plat that was approved back last year for lot 1 that we just talked about where the underground retention is going on. I would like to sign tonight. We didn't do it because we had to get construction plans and everything else, and so, but there's no change from what was approved. And you probably remember this, most of you, so.
Jeff, who seconded that? Who seconded that?
we just need signatures on it. He needs to both sign tonight's. and-
If you want to, yes, and we'll just hold them till the BZ, or you can
Right.
hold them, whatever you want to do.
Do you mind signing it contingent on the BZA?
We will, if that's
Ross will
acceptable
tear
to
it
you.
up. Ross will tear it up if it doesn't get approved.
You know where I live and where my office is.
A lot of people in this room do. Do you have a signature line for you?
Here we go, right here.
Oh, right in front of you.
I don't think I gave you that. Let's say it's here. Did I?
There's not a dated place for it.
There's none?
No. Well, no.
That's why I didn't date it.
Well, this was held on September 26th.
I guess the next issue is inspection and permits.
Thank you.
That's the one from September.
Okay.
Did Dennis sign this one?
Oh, Dennis is here. Okay, don't even ask. Is there any new business? Any old business? Welcome.
Business is put a glass shield over here to keep that air conditioner from freezing to death up here. And that's some town council say.
What did you say, Frosty?
You have to wear a
I had
hat.
a board meeting here, and I got a sore throat from Monday's meeting. Better toward this jacket, I was from his death.
You're losing a lot of heat out of your head.
There you go.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a motion to
We got a
adjourn?
family.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Jill, you won't be home in this one.
I'm gonna say, Carlos.
I figured this was gonna be a long
Some crowd by fire right
He's
there.
got one job. I stayed there all night for one thing.
See, he
20.
You told me no.
Yeah, but I got it. I snuck back there and got it, see.
Well, he told me not to.
27 permits. I'll write it down. 27 permits, 37 inspections. She's gonna ask. You forgot it. You didn't forget it.
Tim, is that since our last meeting or the last month?
No, it's the last, from the last meeting, which is a month ago-ish.
Not this one.
Sorry?
Not the
When
planning
it comes
commission
up
wasn't
against
on
this
that.
stuff though, I
You
can
know,
leave it with her.
you're right. Those aren't right, because they're from the last date that was supposed to be a meeting.
Oh, okay.
See,
Okay, right.
Julie and I kind of spaced it today, to be totally honest. So I ran back to my office, we're all going break, and I went to the last meeting.
Basically, this is the last month.
Trial by fire.
Last month?
Last month.
It's not usually.
Ish, yeah. You're right.
My first meeting.
You're right.
Do you need that in a file?
I'll put it in there.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
You're right. When was the last plan commission? January?
Probably.
February? I'll look and I'll update that next
I
meeting.
think we did meet in February.
You're right. Yeah, I don't know why I thought that.
Because, yeah, we would have, because March was when.
No, we don't need that.
March would have,
No,
yeah.
that's just for
87
the
years.
audience. And they
There you
were
go.
all there, so I just-
Yeah, I'll put this in there.
You have that, don't you?
Yeah. You all right?
Yeah, I got your card.
Okay, all right. Yeah, there should
It's
be,
got like 50 million questions.
there should have been.
Oh, I think it
Thank you.
There's a, yeah, that should be, we got all of our contracts, except for the newest one. So Jessica's not on anymore.
Oh, because
Johnny is not on here anymore.
I'm sorry. I'm so
I got things for you.
And did you sign the minutes from last time or did I?
You know what? I lost them.
You lost them. All right, let me
Well,
see.
no, I think Terry signed them, but I don't know where they went.
What's
Maybe I
that?
grabbed
The minutes?
them.
I don't know.
Okay, you two have a good night.
Take care, guys.
Okay, thanks, John.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too.
Hey, Perry.
Well,
Christie, I don't see the minutes.
I got the one.
that's not our
I think
attorney,
I got
is it?
No.
Perry?
This is
Hang on,
about half right we can see.
I think I've got them right here,
So
Mike.
I'm gonna
These-
mention
This
to
one hasn't
Christie
been
to talk
signed.
to
It looks
Tammy,
like the
who
Board
is
of Zoning
downstairs,
was,
and they can-
Oh, is Tammy downstairs?
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
See if she can just.
Well, she's not
She's busy.
Because this is a
She's not
zoning,
downstairs.
and this is a
But she
planning
works
commission.
You know what, she might have
From
emailed
the
me.
12th.
She
I
did.
should check.
She did.
She did, okay, I
She
need to
did.
just check the email.
I'll mention it to Christine.
I've been
to
working
mention
too,
it to
so
her, and
I'm
Mike.
terrible about checking my email when I'm not at work.
I had the Board of Zoning was signed, but the planning commission wasn't.
Oh, okay.
So he's got, Mike's got that.
You have everything you need.
Sign that.
Except,
Except for that.
And initial your name. Sign it for Dennis.
oh, did he leave?
He's out of here.
Okay.
Nice meeting you.
I'm sure I'll be bugging you guys
That's
both.
fine, thank you.
That was some travel.
This is
So,
That is,
March, that's not May.
She wants to.
We missed April. Oh, I think these had to be signed because remember there was a problem with the
Spelling.
spelling.
the spelling.
But now I still don't have May.
so I might have to bug you, Mike.
That's okay.
I got a bunch of questions. I probably did my procedure wrong. I think Dennis told me I
We
did
will,
my procedure.
we'll try to have.
Do you keep?
Yeah.
It'll take forever to run all this.
Well, I'm reading the book too, so I know there's a lot more to it.
And there's always things come up here
Um,
that you don't know that's in the book.
Right, exactly. I got a lot to learn. That's what I'm saying. A lot.
Well,
You talk about planning and zoning.
here are
It is
the folders with the stuff in them, pretty much in the order that they went. So I wrote down the order, but that's pretty much the order that they went.
Okay.
So we rejiggered the whole
Yes.
agenda.
And Tammy will ask me, did they go out of order? Because we always go out of order.
The only other thing I'm gonna mention is that,
Person?
she showed me what she has as the contact list, and about half that's wrong now. So you might mention to Tammy that we need to get updated, because we got new people,
Right.
a new attorney, and that's all changed.
Okay.
Because the one that she got was from 19, and Mel was here.
Yeah. Okay.
So Mike and I are still here.
And that's about
They're
it.
probably good to have your number on there too.
Yeah.
Or email.
Yes, I know. She's been very
I
helpful
know.
for me. So
Yeah.
if I have any
So-
questions,
so-
she's just handed them over.
So you can just tell her, she probably has the contact list in a file somewhere, in a Word or Excel file. So whether you update it, she updates it. It's a complicated,
Okay.
it'd be nice to have email that file for your first.
This is because.
All right?
Yes, thank
of the
you.
Pandemic.
Okay. And if you get confused, just let us know.
I probably will. Oh, I just
That took
not.
over an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Turn it off.
Well, and I, the first home that I bought with my ex was a manufactured home.
Hey,
My, this under now, so I felt for the homeowners because my aunt and uncle were in a situation like that. They bought a higher end
it
home
says we're streaming live right now.
across from the agricultural zone. And the doctor that owned it died, and they wanted to rezone it so they could shell. And their
Shane.
property that we
Hey, Shane.
dropped a rock.
You want some hand
So it's
sanitizer?
like,
She needs to-
I get it,
To turn off the video.
but I get it. I got lots to learn, so I'm probably gonna be bugging
You got a problem with that? Yes, I did. I signed it the next day.
Shane, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
Let me try to.
That was not certified or verified, so.
Is that confusing enough for you?
Means nothing. They go and get all the, they can go get all the signatures, but if they don't put down the county, they're done.
So where in Cleveland grew up?
So I was born, in Kaiser Permanente on Snow Road. My parents lived in Little Italy because my dad was finishing up his work case master.